Kirk Elliott Precious Metals. Call 720-605-3900 or visit kepm.com/B2T to learn how to reposition your retirement into low-cost 100% liquid gold and silver bullion. No high commission coins, no overpriced collectibles. KEPM educates you, charges no commission when you sell, and keeps your investment secure. Beware of firms pushing rare coins with sky-high markups. Stick with bullion for maximum liquidity and value. Seize this moment to thrive in uncertain times. Call Kirk Elliott Precious Metals at 720-605-3900 or go to kepm.com/B2T today. Real assets, real security, real future.
Welcome, it's Rick B2T. We're going to be empowering Christian Patriot truth the next hour plus. We're going to be digging into a great show talking about Election Day 2024. What really happened there? How did we stop the steal? And wow, there's a thread that I just was enthralled with that I came across last night. I want to dig into that. That'll take some time to dig into, but I think you guys will really enjoy it. We're going to be also talking about Autopen pardons, null and void, according to the Oversight Committee. That's going to be going to the Supreme Court. So all those pardons, they weren't going to work anyway, because if they came into military tribunals and treason, which was really most of what's going to end up happening, I believe, for these Nuremberg-type trials, it's going to be a wild ride the next few years, I think. Will the truth, it's part of not having a civil war. We have to wake up a lot of people though first. So that is part of our job, right, is to be digital soldiers and wake people up. And it is starting to happen, guys. I'm telling you, there's independents coming our way. There's even Democrats coming our way. There's all these rhinos being exposed. People are starting to realize this is a spiritual war against the globalist elite and we the people versus right, left, or black, white, or class wars. They want us to fight every way we can. And guys, it is exciting that we are making great progress. So let's dig in. Let's dig into the breaking news here. Let me see if we could get that up here. The breaking news, lower third. There it is. Hey, we got Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu orders immediate and powerful strike in the Gaza Strip. Hamas violated the ceasefire by shooting at IDF soldiers in Rafah Tuesday. And so this is actually some pretty big fireworks were along this. I'm going to move this a little closer, the microphone. So I've got this really expensive microphone here that's pretty awesome. And and you guys have to let me know on volume how that's doing. But it seems like it does really well when I get it close enough to me. And so the guests are a little bit louder sometimes. So I think we've adjusted that and got it. But this is, again, J.D. Vance came out and said, hey, the ceasefire is still in place. But it's like one of those things where if somebody, they shot, it wasn't just like a few shots. It was like rocket prepared anti-tank missiles and stuff like that. So this is a pretty big, attack. And so, but as they work with this loose group of Hamas terrorists, it's really tough to enforce anything, right? So it'll be really interesting. I think what's going to end up happening, and my prediction is that these guys are so insane. They're the same ones who are beheading babies and women and torturing and doing every atrocious thing you can imagine. These people are just trained from birth to hate Israel, right? To hate every single Jew. And so with that in mind, my prediction is that the Muslim-based forces from these Arab nations are going to have military come in and take out Hamas. And that is a brilliant plan that Trump has threatened already, and many countries supposedly are on board with that. So that could be huge. So anyway, we'll see how this turns out. But again, there are strikes going back and forth. The Air Force has been busy most of the day-to-day in Israel, actually attacking. And there's a reason why all of history kind of around the biblical text centers on Israel, right? That's God's chosen land. We'll talk a little bit about that. It's not just God came down with a Jewish person named Jesus, right? He's the Lion of Judah, right? So Judah Jews. So a Jewish person came down and represented God in flesh, and he is, and it was in the land of Israel, right? And actually Jerusalem is in the area that was Judea, right? So you have just an amazing concentration on that, and the enemy does everything it can, and it wants a bunch of Palestinians that hate Jewish people right there to create constant conflict. They do not want Israel to have any peace. We're supposed to be praying for peace in Jerusalem. That's what the Bible's very clear about that. Doesn't mean there's not a huge deep state there. There is. There's a huge deep state there. And Israel's for last is a discussion about, because it's so deep and entrenched, it's going to be hard to get them out. I mean, they vaccinated almost all their people. So that there's an evil segment controlling the government, controlling health, just like there is here. We have big pharma in control here. So don't tell me that Israel's much more evil than we as the United States are. If you just look at big pharma, it's still in control. Robert Kennedy Jr. is doing okay. But anyway, it's really interesting to dig into what Candace Owens and Tucker's talking about it versus what Mike Huckabee's saying and Ted Cruz. There's a real split that Satan's trying to do in MAGA and within this movement. Again, they want to separate us any way they can. And so the more we can unite, we can disagree on things, but we have to unite against the globalists. The focus has to be there, right? That's what just is so sad about what the effective division that's happening right now within the conservative and MAGA movement. And we need to understand, guys, the war is against the globalist. Okay, that's what Satan's really attacking us with. This will be one of SCOTUS's more landmark decisions, right up there with voter ID. James Woods says, what is he talking about? He's talking about the Oversight Committee has declared all of Joe Biden's Autopen pardons and executive actions null and void. So this isn't talking about just the pardons. This is talking about the EOs he put in place. Right now, Trump's already reversed most of those, but this is wild. Releasing a 100-page report calling on the DOJ to launch a full investigation into the legality of Biden's pardons and executive actions. So if they take actions on this could go all the way up to the Supreme Court. This is what James Woods is thinking is probably going to happen with all these. You can see all those signatures being exactly the same. Why? Because they were all part of the exact same Autopen. That includes the Biden family pardon, the J6 committee pardon, which is crazy. They would this is called the General Milley pardon, the Dr. Fauci pardon. I'm not sure what that one says right there. Luno gun pardon. I'm not sure what that one is, but it's going to be fun to watch that all come together. Is it not? Hey guys, I did want to talk to you a little bit about making sure you have the Rumble app downloaded, right? That's one thing I wanted to see if I can get this to work here. So this is the Rumble. I'm going to remove this test campaign and actually go to the talking about the Rumble app. There we go. And this is important because what we can do if we have this, if we all have supporting these type of companies that are supporting freedom, right? If you haven't already, make sure you download the Rumble app. I know some of you are listening on YouTube and Facebook, but this is important because there's so many patriots here. It's free, simple to use, and the best way to stay connected to the content you want. Once you've got it, search for my channel. Again, it would just be Blessed to Teach. I usually use Blessed with the number 2 Teach. Blessed with the number 2 Teach, right? That way you'll get a notification every time I go live with no miss shows. You can grab it right now using the link in the description and pinned live chat download. So you can see right here, I use the QR code right there to get it as well. Download it on your phone and you're ready to go. And if you prefer watching on the big screen, Rumble is available all major streaming devices such as the smart TVs. Search for Rumble, follow the channel, and be part of the action. Guys, that's how I actually do a lot of my viewing, is just use my Roku, and I just search on Rumble for that. You can also, all right, so That is a awesome thing to have on your phone, etc. All right, let's continue some breaking news here. Besides the Rumble, that's the download from the Apple App Store right there. Whistleblower warns illegal immigrants are sending shockwave through the crucial industry. The DOT Secretary Duffy accused California of issuing a commercial driver's license, a CDL, to a foreign national whose truck killed 3 people. And the number of licenses that look like that California gave CDLs to is just crazy. And KDK on the Backstage here has been telling us about this for the last year and a half, how many of these people have been given CDLs, which drove the price of wage down massively for American drivers and put our highways at risk, right? And so that's why these people that are trying to look at this, they said the wages went down and stayed down, and we never knew as truckers what was the problem. And so we can see right here the 5 mugshots of alleged illegal immigrants accused of deadly car crashes from around the U.S. And you can see that there's a bunch of them that are happening here. And they all got CDLs, and some of them couldn't even read signs. Most of them actually. The 2025 annual program review of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration concluded that the state's commercial driver's license system suffered from systematic policy, procedural, and programming errors. Where basically, if you were a legal alien, not only did you get food stamps and SNAP, and you got hotels for periods of time, and you also got a driver's license that they wouldn't even give other people that were Americans, right? Just crazy what this invasion really was about. Senate Democrats blocked the government funding bill for the 13th time. So we know that the Democrats are basically using this for political purposes. And I believe that this could be a good thing, even though I know it's painful in many areas, like many people not getting paid. But is it really hurting? Is it hurting the MAGA movement? Well, CNN is reporting that it's not. Let's listen.
How has the shutdown seemed to have affected their political standing?
Yeah, you might think, given that the Republicans are in charge of both the House and the Senate, that a government shutdown might actually hurt the Republican brand. But in fact, it hasn't. If anything, it's been helped a little bit. Take a look here, the shift in net popularity versus pre-shutdown. When we're looking at the Republican Party overall, that brand actually up 2 points. That's within the margin of error, but clearly it hasn't dropped. Come over to this side of the screen. Look at the net approval ratings for Republicans in Congress. It's actually up 5 points since pre-shutdown. So what we're seeing here is the Republican brand in Congress has actually improved somewhat compared to where we were pre-shutdown, despite the fact that Republicans control. And that's the math that John Thune and Mike Johnson are looking at is, well, hey, why should we give, and electorally speaking, when our brand has actually improved a little bit?
Now, we say their position is getting better. With whom?
Yeah, okay, with whom? So I think it's 2 groups that it's so important to keep an eye out on. All right, changing the Republican Congress's net approval rating versus pre-shutdown. It's rallying the base for sure. Look at this. The net approval rating up 12 points versus pre-shutdown. But it's not just with the base. It's also with the middle of the electorate. Look at this. Among independents, it's up 8 points as well. So we've got a situation here where Republicans with the shutdown are actually rallying their base, but it's also something that's not hurting them with the folks in the middle. If anything, it's
there you go. Independents are coming on board, right? So this whole shutdown period hopefully will become 61 days. After 61 days, the furloughs can become permanent, and Trump can basically fire whoever he wants. So that could be pretty awesome thing. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's really going on behind the scenes. I know that we report a lot about on that from the Q drops and what the Patriots have set the stage for. And we didn't know it was going to take 5 or 6 years. In fact, today is the 8th year anniversary of the first Q drop, right? Just think about that. 8 years ago was the first one, and that changed a lot of my life because as I started waking up to what was going on and Anon's researching the truth, it was just a beautiful thing to see. And I'm just excited just to think about that, of what happened. Many of us were awakened by, or at least in deeper levels, from just the questions that Q asks. This is a Socratic method of asking questions about have you researched the Rothschilds, right? How was Hillary Clinton's Haiti? How did the Clinton Foundation? How much money actually went to the Haitians, right? It's like 2% of the money, obviously, and it's just like everything that was opened up. That's 8 years ago. Just think about that. So we really thought that this was going to come to fruition in 2020, 2021 with all military getting involved. But now we're seeing the military getting involved from a perspective of the National Guard, which was the first few drops that Q talked about, right? So how's all that going to pan out? I think it's something that we're going to see. News unlocks the map. All that type of stuff is going to really start happening right before our eyes, and that is what I'm excited about going forward here. And we need to be praying for Jamaica. It's like, look what's happening to these guys. They're getting pounded by a hurricane that's bigger than the island itself, right? It's huge, and that's why Sean Foyt's saying right now it's a terrifying moment for millions of people. The size of the hurricane now dwarfs the size of the nation. So please pray for Jamaica. They're getting nailed right now. I know that's actually where I got married, down in Jamaica. Trump appeals felony conviction, citing Supreme Court immunity. So this is interesting. That's all those lawfare things are still in play in some ways, but most of them have lost because of Trump's immunity almost completely. So it's awesome to see that the real news is coming out about who the real felons are, right? And we know, and that has a lot to do with what we're going to get into and dig into detail on what happened in the 2020 election, what happened in the 2024 election. It's a little bit of a teaser, but you're going to enjoy it. President Trump arrives to God bless the USA aboard the George Washington in Japan, and obviously the troops just love him. Here's a quick clip of this.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up.
Fast forward that a little bit. They're saying Trump, 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 Trump. Trump, 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 and USA, USA, USA. He's become one of the most popular presidents ever now, as this continues, and there's nothing's going to stop him. And that's even with all the fake news. Just think about it, you have 95% negative coverage, but yet you're more popular than ever. It's like, here's Jesse Waters talking about Trump gets a royal welcome everywhere he goes. That's exactly what you're seeing. And here's Trump talking about this. He says, after winning 3 elections by a lot, I am now getting the best polling numbers that I've ever received. People see how strong the economy is, the trillions of dollars of investment pouring into our country, the record-setting strong border after years of millions of criminals pouring through it, totally unvetted and unchecked, ending 8 wars in 8 months, no men playing in women's sports, no transgender for everyone, rapidly falling energy prices, and much more. Despite all this, the radical left losers are taking fake ads, not showing real polls, but rather saying that I'm polling at low levels. These are the people that I've been beating for years, and I'm continuing to do so, but by even bigger margins. These ads should not be allowed to run because they are fake. So Trump calling out the fake polling, which is a big problem that we've had as elites control the election machines, what I call the selection machines, as well as the polls. So this is something that is, he who controls the media controls the mind. That's what Jim Morrison said way back, right? And it's all the Mockingbird media that I've been fighting for 8 years. That's when I got involved in this. Was actually I learned about the Mockingbird media and started reporting on it in my Facebook account in 2017. I opened up my first YouTube channel in February of 2019. By the way, that first video I did there where I had the Rubik's Cube, some people call it the Rubik's Cube video, is now, I lost it because it was taken away in 2020, right before the election, when they took out, I think, 100 and some accounts that talked about Q. If you talked about Q drops, you were gone. Even if you had 0 strikes. I had 0 strikes because I had like 6 YouTube channels, and I would, whenever I got a strike, I'd go to the next channel. I'd get a strike, I'd go to the next channel. Similar to Patriot Street Fighter, just started a new channel and just lose it. I had 6 channels, and I rotated until it wore off the strike every like 1 month. In 30 days, your strike wore off. So I could just go around my channels. And so so that channel came back after 5 years. Believe it or not, we're live on it right now, and hardly anybody's there because most people know you can't get truth on YouTube. So most people have moved off it, but there is 4 people watching right now live, right? On an account that used to have hundreds watching it. We'd get 16 to 20,000 views on that with 109,000 subscribers on that YouTube channel. That channel's alive now, believe it or not. But you can go back and look at history. That's one good thing about it. You can go back to the it's actually blessed with the TO. I never use that anymore, but back then I was using blessed with the TO teach. You can find that on YouTube and go find my really old videos, right? All the old gene decode videos, all those things are back there on there. That's where I did probably 70% of my videos were there. I did have to come off it because of the strike, so remember that. But quite fun to know this is the 8-year anniversary of the Q drops, and 5 years exactly on the day that they took my account away, I got my account back. But it's pretty much worthless. It's completely shadow banned. Obviously, 4 people watching it right now with 105,000 subscribers or 104,000 subscribers. I think it has now because it came down. But anyway, glad to be back on YouTube. Those of you, I can post your comments, by the way, from the Backstage Zoom. I can post your comments from the YouTube channel that I just talked about there. I see American B2 is on there. So that's pretty cool to be able to see the YouTube people, a few YouTube people talking there. 6 watching now on YouTube. It's about 10 times that on Rumble, I believe, right now. I'm not sure. Yeah, 40 plus on Rumble. But it's exciting. But we are live also on Faith and Freedom TV as well as Facebook. And so we're spread out. We're spread out all over the place. Then this show goes to BitChute and Brighteon over 20 places. That's how I survived, and that's why I'm still alive and be able to do this full time, guys, and expanding into new things. So other things with Trump. Look at this. This is Real Robert saying, "Well, here it is. It just got worse beyond anyone could have imagined. The illegal alien industry. The aliens were issued Social Security numbers by the Biden terrorist administration. So this is what's happened. 270,000 Social Security numbers in 2021. 590,000 plus in 2022, 964,000 in 2023, and this is the kicker, guys. 2024, on the way out the door, over 2 million, nearly 2.1 million Social Security numbers were given by the Biden-Harris administration just in 1 year. And so you add those up, and you've got almost 4 million Social Security numbers being given out, with 1.4 million aliens on Medicaid. So we're killing our social programs. And that the whole SNAP thing that just got turned off temporarily, right? We're realizing that almost 70% of the people on SNAP aren't Americans. Just think about that. They're not Americans. They put them in 2 categories of illegals or non-citizens. Non-citizens, illegals, getting 70% of our SNAP? Are you kidding me? That those of you who don't know who SNAP is, that's the food stamp whole thing. That's just crazy. Now 59% of illegal aliens are confirmed to be collecting food stamps. Think about that. You have these millions of people coming in, and 59% of them are on, and they're getting free health care, free food. Many of them put on hotels, as you know. This was an invasion by the elites. They need to destroy America, because you can't have a strong melting pot of Americans that love each other from all different classes and creeds working together, understanding who the cabal is, and have a one world government. They have to break us apart, get us to fight fight on race and creed in every way they can to, like I showed, to break up the Rubik's Cube right way back. And that first video I did is embarrassing because I didn't even know how to use any of these tools. So I had printed out and from my PowerPoint document on pieces of paper. I'm holding up pieces of paper in front. Then I hold up the Rubik's Cube and stuff. So if you want to go laugh at my very first, I think, YouTube video, go back to the YouTube channel, Blessed Tio Teach, and you'll find that. Go to the sort on the oldest video, and you'll find that video from 8 years ago, right? Or almost 8 years ago. 8 years ago today is when Q started posting. That's why we're doing a little bit of nostalgia here. And this meaning of this is you've been deceived, robbed, cheated, extorted, blackmailed, and defrauded by Democrats in the tens of millions. And I would say it's not really the Democrats, it's really the elite, because this includes all the rhinos. Republican in name only, RINO, right? It's not the animal, it's RINO. It's an acrostic of Republicans in name only, and that Republicans in name only are worse because they act like they're for us, and they're doing backroom deals, smoking cigars with Chuck Schumer and all the others. Here's a pretty crazy. Charlie Kirk did not like Nick Fuentes, right? In fact, in July, a concerned mother called Charlie Kirk to ask where her son was getting revisionist ideas about Hitler and the Jews. So Fuentes doesn't believe in the Holocaust, doesn't believe it's 6 million people. She referenced the gropers and asked her, I'll just play it. So here's her question about her son.
Wanting to be rid of the Jews weren't so wrong, even if how he went about it was evil. And so I'd like to know where he's getting these lies. I've heard a little bit about the groypers from Not the Bee. I'd never heard that term before. So my question to you is this. Do you know some of the names of the influencers who are taking advantage of the conservative youth movement? I want to read
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
materials.
Yeah, so thank you. So first of all, I do know the names. I'm not going to repeat them because that only makes them and their little irrelevant circle bigger.
Nick Fuentes, thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
So now here's this guy, completely anti-Semite, completely hatred of Jews, and who's interviewing him? Who's amplifying his voice? Tucker Carlson.
thank you for having me.
I wanted to meet you. I
For a
thought you
long
were
time.
a Fed. I was
Yeah, and I thought you were a Fed.
I was a Fed.
Yeah.
I'm not
So
a
here
Fed.
they're laughing. Here he is taking, guys. This is just really sad. And if you look here, I just wanted to kind of get some basis here. Here's Lance Waldau, who's on our Faith and Freedom TV, does a really
Don't subdivide and start carving up my land. For behold, in those days, the Lord says in chapter 3 of Joel, when I restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem, I will gather all the nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will enter into judgment with them there. So first, God is restoring Israel as a nation. Happened in 1948. He's continuing to restore and expand their strength and their economic viability and their power as a little country. I'm going to gather then, the Lord says, all the nations to a valley of Jehoshaphat, a valley of judgment. And I'm going to enter into judgment there. And the reason I'm going to do it is because they divided up my land. God says there's one piece of real estate I own, and that's that little place right there. Don't subdivide and start carving up my land. Now, I know this is going to get a whole lot of weird responses depending on what kind of spirit you're plugged into, but that's the word of God.
Guys, that is true. The Bible could not be clearer. God said there is one piece of real estate He calls His own. Now, of course, we are His own from a perspective, from being saved perspective, but He's also got promises to the bloodline of Israel as well as to the land. So that all those three things have promises that are separate, and they're not. We did not replace Israel. That's a replacement theology is a cancer that's going wild. And so there's Christians being divided over this, and it's really sad. But the Bible could not be clearer. God said there is one piece of real estate He calls His own, and it is that small strip of land called Israel. Every nation that tries to divide it will find itself standing in the valley of judgment because God takes his covenant seriously. So taking this two-state solution and it is a dangerous thing. But if you look here, Dinesh D'Souza says, I was posting 2 text exchanges with Charlie Kirk where he calls Nick Fuentes vermin and insists, even by debating him and defeating his arguments, nevertheless amplifies him. One can only imagine what Charlie would say about Tucker's butt-licking interview with Fuentes. I mean, it was a softball interview he gave him. And so you see here, this was Charlie Kirk to Dinesh, and he's talking to Dinesh. He says, this was a massive mistake. You did this. So they went on Alex Jones and argued with each other about Israel. And Dinesh defending Israel, and Fuentes basically spewing hatred. And you can see Charlie Kirk says, his vermin, and you just gave him one of his biggest boosts of his career. So basically Charlie says, Dinesh, why'd you do this? And here's another one who said, you have no idea the damage you did by talking to him and complimenting him. You're making him even bigger. We've been fighting this guy for 6 years, and you are the first mainstream voice to debate him and give him a compliment, which then makes him bigger and more powerful. And so Dinesh replied and said, I'm getting a ton of this. As a younger guy myself, was amazing to hear from your experience. Very good points. So Dinesh was listening to Charlie, but then this is the guy that Tucker's putting on and giving him softball type of things. And you see Ted Cruz also basically saying, why is it's sad to see Tucker turning into a Nick Fuentes, right? Is what we're seeing and happening. Yeah, so here's the big thing I want to get into. Now this is going to take a while, but I think you guys will love it because I learned some new things in here, and I've been studying election interference in the 2020 election, 2024 election, and everything that's been going on in detail. And she does a great job. So it's The Absolute Truth by Emerald Robinson. She's the Savage Queen of Twitter, host of Absolute with an E and Real Lindell TV. She's an ex-Newsmax and ex-ON White House correspondent. If you do a little bit more research on her, this is just what Grok said. She's a journalist and commentator known for her focus on political journalism and media analysis. She's got background in journalism, starting with her roles at local news stations before gaining prominence in national media. She was a writer and actress with credits including The Daily Orbit in 2012, Hit Team in 2015, and Clams with Green Onions in 2009. She was born in 1982, making her 43 years old. Robinson's been a prominent figure on X, where she has built a following by discussing election integrity and political controversies. She was previously a White House correspondent for Newsmax, in a role that led to being named a witness in the defamation lawsuits by Dominion Voting Systems and Smartmatic. So Dominion Voting Systems and Smartmatic sued all these people. She was being brought in because of something she put on X. In 2024, she was deposed by Dominion lawyers, highlighting her involvement in legal battles over election fraud claims. And so her career has been defined by this pretty much. I wanted to kind of go back to just to show you that she has like 880,000 followers. Highly suggest following her if you want to really know what's going on with election fraud. She's on top of it, and some of the most leading edge things that I've been seeing as I've researched this heavily. She is incredibly on top of that. So let's get into this. This is 120, literally 100. This would take 2 hours if I took a minute per thing. So I'm going to go pretty quickly, so it doesn't take nearly that long, right? But I thought it'd be fun because this took me a while to go through last night. I wanted me to read this for you so that you didn't have to go through the painstaking of reading it yourself. It's time to explain exactly what happened on Election Day 2024 to stop the steal. This was a very long thread and involves quite a few people over 4 years, a dozen sources. We must begin just after the rigged 2020 election. Now, by the way, this is one of the, I think, most read threads of all time now. So I think you'll love this. Some of this is dated. It's back in January of this year, but it goes all the way, I think, into May. So this is great updates. Let's begin with the story of December 2020. Why? Because President Trump wanted election fraud investigated. He told the team to hire some someone to discover the truth about voting machines. Multiple sources tell me an ex-CIA investigator was hired for the job. That investigator reported that claims of election fraud were overblown. Some DOJ lawyers also wanted election fraud investigated. Those efforts were blocked by AG Bill Barr's staff, including Barr's COS, Will Levy. Levy threatened to quit if any cases were launched. That's called a rhino in the Republican administration, a guy named Will Levy. Remember some of these names. These guys need to be held accountable. Also in December 2020, a group of national security analysts briefed the White House that enough evidence of election fraud existed to launch a full USG investigation. And that COS up here was the chief of staff. So Will Levy was the chief of staff of Bill Barr, saying he'd quit if any cases were launched. And so Bill caved into the deep state. In January 2021, several GOP senators were briefed as well. Neither the White House nor the senators authorized the investigation. So they caved. This is all good because God was in control, and he used those 4 years to show us. So sometimes you can't tell, like Q says. Sometimes you can't tell people, you have to show them. And boy, did that show what the cabal would do to the country if we let them. Fortunately, we controlled the nuclear codes most likely, and the continuation of government was going on, right? Continuity of government was going on. We'll continue this. This is just a fascinating look at this. Look, a few people tried to alert President Trump about the National Security Analyst briefing and the need for a full investigation in late 2020, but those efforts were blocked by White House counsel Pat Cipollone. According to two sources, Cipollone joined Bill Barr's law firm in January 7, 2024. He's also the guy that when Patrick Byrne and Sidney Powell and General Flynn went in there, fought Trump on doing anything, right? So obviously, again, rhino, Republican in name only, deep state operative. Chris Krebs, the head of a small agency called CISA, which is inside the Department of Homeland Security, sent out a press release in 2020 claiming the 2020 election was the most secure in American history. Krebs was not a cybersecurity expert. Who hired him? The head of DHS, Chad Wolf. So we got to remember some of these names. Chris Krebs, absolute criminal of what he did and a liar. Chad Wolf hired him, right? So these deep states, the deep state was completely within the Trump administration in a huge way. Krebs was hired because he was Chad Wolf's close friend. He worked at CISA coordinating with left-wing orgs like Democracy Works to prepare for the 2020 election. Trump fired Krebs a week after he dismissed Defense Secretary Mark Esper. Trump removed Esper. Chris Miller and Ezra Cohen were rushed to the Pentagon on November 11th because Esper stopped responding to the White House. White House officials feared a soft coup was taking place. And of course it was. The coup was pretty much over. On November 18th, Miller put all special forces under his direct command. You probably remember this. We thought this was like, well, this is the time when, we're going to have everything take over. But they did some critical work there to basically prepare, I believe, for the continuity of government. When I was deposed by Dominion lawyers in 2024, I was asked specifically about the tweet from November 10th, 2020, because I was told, the first mention on social media of a link between Smartmatic and Dominion. So here's Emerald doing this research, linking Smartmatic and Dominion. And we know now they all use the same derivative software, right? That was Sequoia back in Smartmatic and Dominion, and then again ESS, and all the software can be used with the virtual machines in Serbia that changed the votes, right? And so that's an important point, she says here. And this is what they're talking about. This is November 10th, 2020. She put all crooked roads lead to Dominion voting machines. And she put a whole X thing here. Hopefully I'm going to be able to get back to all this. That's a broken link now. And then you see number 10 here. On November 11th, 2020, I noted on Twitter that Mark Malloch Brown, the best friend of global villain George Soros, was listed on the board of directors for Smartmatic. So these are just names, Malloch Brown, that we need to understand. Dominion voting machines leads you to Smartmatic, which leads you to Mark Malloch Brown. Who is he? he's the best friend of George Soros. No, I'm not kidding. And here's an archive George Soros. I'm not going to dig into that because we don't have time, but you guys can go look for that for yourself. By November 12th, 2020, any mention of Mark Malloch Brown and his leading role with Smartmatic had been wiped from the company's website. So since people knew this was the link from Smartmatic to George Soros and into Dominion, you can see right here going in a Wayback Machine. There's Lord Malloch Brown with Smartmatic right there. But now you go look now, and the news record is not available anymore. So that link is completely scrubbed. On November 19th, 2020, Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell held a press conference at the RNC headquarters. Powell claimed that Dominion brand machines were using Smartmatic software. She also claimed Smartmatic software was developed in Venezuela for dictator Hugo Chavez. By mid-November, public network scans of Dominion made by military intel analysts were available through legal filings in Michigan. What these documents revealed about America's election machine was damning. There's a whole thread here about this that we're not going to have time to go into. It talks about says Exhibit 105 of the Michigan filing is the declaration of a military intel analyst from 305th who mapped the networks of Dominion voting systems and Edison Research. Again, on December 18th, Trump met with Sidney Powell, Michael Flynn, and Overstock CEO Patrick Byrne at the White House. I've read his whole books. Had Patrick on, had Michael Flynn on, and Sidney Powell all on this show. So those of you who didn't see me for 5 years on YouTube, we've had some awesome people. 107 comes on here. Sidney Powell's been on here. Michael Flynn, Patrick Byrne. I've interviewed them all as part of the Reawaken tour. It was awesome. They urged Trump to launch an investigation of the voting machines. White House staffers Pat Cipollone, Eric Hirschman, and Derek Lyons all argued against doing it. So this is probably a God thing, but again, this just shows that they're most likely completely linked to the cabal. So now, Rudy Giuliani also said it. Trump said, "Hey, if we do this, we'll probably end up in jail," and he's probably right. Back then, there would have been a civil war, and the cabal owned more because we found this out. Even though the Trump administration was in power, they owned many positions, as we're seeing here. It looks like all these White House staffers were owned by the Black Hats, right? December 18th was also the due date for the DNI Ratcliffe to submit a report to President Trump on foreign interference in the 2020 election. Ratcliffe missed the deadline, which is really weird. She reported on 3 days till the report is due on foreign interference in the 2020 election, and that didn't come in time for Trump to do anything. Again, probably a God thing because we're in a much better position now with Trump's 4 years right now, where he can plan and learn and understand and have the continuity of government go those 4 years, but then be rock solid and ready to with all those EOs from the time he got in, 9 months ago or so. Ratcliffe did not release this report until January 7th, 2021. Note the date of release. His report stated that CIA management activity suppressed intel that China interfered with the 2020 election, which we know now through Serbia they used the virtual machine to change votes. That's right, the CIA was hiding China's role in the 2020 election. Treason. So the CIA, as we know, is completely rogue. Clowns in America is what Q called them, right? Ratcliffe confirmed that China interfered with the 2020 election and that the CIA had tried to hide the fact, but this info arrived too late to help President Trump. Here's a link to Ratcliffe's letter that actually shows that, yes, China did interfere with the election. On January 6th, almost 100 House Republicans and more than 12 GOP senators were ready to object to election results in Congress. Again, they were just asking them to go back 10 days. This is what the whole Branson case is about. The fact that everybody who voted against this should be kicked out of office, right? That's what the whole Branson case that, by the way, the Supreme Court could bring that up at any time, right? Only an emergency could override a halt that day session. That's why when I was walking to the Capitol that day, and with a very peaceful people blowing their shofars and singing, we're not going to take it, but no violence whatsoever, right? And it was all the feds and the Antifa people that really caused 90% of the problems. But when I was walking there, the last thing I wanted to do was go in there. I knew that that was the day that they were going to eject it. So what they purposely did that so they could call an emergency. Only an emergency could override the halt that day's session. When an emergency happens, special rules apply in Congress. Less than 10 minutes before 2 reps called a vote for motions to suspend the election certification, Capitol Police claimed that a protest outside might breach the chambers. Key leaders were escorted out. Speaker Pelosi then halted Congress using emergency rules. That was all planned. That was all planned. So all of us that went there, again, probably a God thing. A couple million people is probably there. And now all these Fed, what are they saying? There's several hundred Feds were there, 200 and some, and that that doesn't count, guys. The plainclothes DC police and the Antifa people dressed up as Trump supporters. That's all going to be coming out. It's going to be beautiful. January 6th was staged. Tier 1 operations FBI agents present that day in the crowd exercising their First Amendment saw a red starlight shell fired over the Capitol just before the fake insurrection began. I didn't even know this. So they've documented now a red starlight shell that fired over the Capitol was a signal. That shell was used to signal the start of the battle, right? Okay, now we're in session. We have all these congressmen that are going to be asking to go back to the states to do an audit for 10 days. And the Pelosi cabal, globalist, whatever you want to call these guys, the criminal cabal, basically staged this to stop that. After the January 6th, the FBI, WFO, emailed all employees that if they were on the mall, they were required to give a statement. Some agents who didn't volunteer were identified by others. They were required to give statements against their will. Those FD 302s are still secret. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out. The DOJ's OAG later found the FBI had at least 26 confidential human sources, and we know that's over 200 now, who present. In fact, I'm just going to ask Grok that real quick. It's one thing that I do use Grok for is factual type information. How many Feds were in plain clothes on J6? I think that really might get an update because it was not the 26, right? So and we just found out there's a whole bunch more. See if it's going to give me a number, dude. I just want the number. And so here it is: 274 federal agents deployed post breach. 4 of which were restricted access, and 26 were in there beforehand, telling us, basically instigating all this with the Antifa people. And 274 came, and they came in plain clothes special agents and employees sent after the riot began. So 274 plus, so over 300 were there. Okay, and so again, this post breach, that guys, that could have been they could have been ready. They could have already had instructions knowing what to do. They could have instigated many of this because there was a long period of time before we even started walking over there because we were listening to Trump's speech. They breached it before Trump even said we're going to be marching there, right? It was a long hours. So they could have been there by the time I got to the Capitol. There was many, all those 274 were probably there instigating it even more. This is a total setup. And interesting stuff here. Let's see. Here we are back here. The DOJ's OEG later found the FBI had some over 300. Over 300. Okay. On January 7th, 2021, President Trump was banned from Twitter. On January 8th, 2021, Sidney Powell and Michael Flynn and Patrick Byrne were banned from Twitter. The coup was complete. The era of government censorship began. Remember that almost on January 7th, after you had I lost my Facebook account. Most Anons that had already lost their YouTube account before the election, we all on January 7th lost our Facebook, Instagram, and much more, as well as the Twitters. And so we were silenced completely after that. So that great followings that we all built was pretty much eliminated completely by the globalist cabal of big tech. On January 8th, Dominion filed a defamation lawsuit against Sidney Powell for $1.3 billion in damages. So they shut her up. On January 25th, Dominion filed a similar lawsuit against Giuliani. Suits fought against Fox, ON, Newsmax, and others soon followed. Then Eric Coomer's suing people too, such as Lindell, and he's suing Joe Altman. These are great men of God that are part of this whole fight. Dominion's lawyers are Sussman Godfrey LLP. So again, if you want to really know some evil companies, the Sussman Godfrey LLP, and again, these are Coomers funded by these people as well. You got on February 4th, Smartmatic filed a defamation lawsuit against Fox News for $2.7 billion in damages. It just shows you how Fox News, who's called this election early. On November 3rd, Smartmatic filed similar lawsuits against Newsmax and OAN. I was named in as a witness in both the Dominion and Smartmatic cases against Newsmax. In discovery, Dominion and Smartmatic were allowed to search the personal phones and private emails of TV hosts, TV producers, and journalists. This is crazy. This is how much control the Black Hats still had. And it shows you why Trump couldn't fight this at that point in time. They allowed, you're supposed to have privacy as a journalist, right? Of your sources. They allowed them to go over their personal phones, their private emails of TV hosts, TV producers, and journalists. Not just emails, but texts. This had never been allowed before in the history of American journalism. Courts ignored all press freedoms. I didn't know that. See, this is the new stuff I thought was so cool about this thread. Beautiful thread. Trump was impeached for the second time on January 13th, 2021, one week before his term expired. The House adopted one article against him, incitement of insurrection. The Senate trial began on February 9th. Final vote was 10 votes short of 2/3 majority required to convict. No GOP senator stated publicly at the time that January 6th was fabricated by the national security state to halt lawful investigations of election fraud. Instead, they went along with the coup. Most of them voted to confirm all of Biden's cabinet picks in 2021. So now, is this part of God's plan, or was it part of the White Hat's hands? I don't know. I think the White Hats got shocked here and had to regroup. I think that included Trump. And so I don't think they were planning on this 4-year reprieve. You guys let me know what you think in the text. I'll put some stuff with it. Hey, Bob Rhino saying hi, Rick. Interesting. Yeah. American B2 and YouTube saying, wonder if Hillary will help Jamaica. It's like, yeah, that's a really good point. So I could post some of this stuff up here. Pray against Cat 5 Jamaica. Yes, we need to be praying for that as well, as we talked about earlier in the broadcast. The illegal Biden regime started on January 20th, 2021. As one of his first acts, the Biden regime allowed China to access the U.S. power grid. This made it clear Joe Biden was owned and operated by the CCP, and here's a whole article about that. Just crazy. Jen Psaki basically diverting it. Meanwhile, Dominion hired Claire Locke LLP. So remember this. To send letters to 150 people demanding they cease and desist from taking part in defaming Dominion and to preserve all documents. The voting machine companies were trying to make discussion of election fraud illegal or actionable. So this is complete lawfare on American citizens. Complete lawfare by the cabal of globalists that owns Dominion, obviously. This all goes back to all the Venezuela and taking over our machines, and the CIA actually used money. You'll find this out later. Used USAID, surprise, surprise, and other funding to take these machines worldwide to 72 countries, including the United States. This is how evil our own CIA is. They needed to destroy America to get to the one world government. Okay. And so on February 5th, Fox News pulled Lou Dobbs off the air. He was the highest rated host on Fox Business. The day before Dobbs and Fox were named in a $2.7 billion defamation lawsuit filed by Smartmatic. Any public figure who discussed election fraud was now a target to be fired. And of course, Fox completely folded here. Why? Well, the same reason they called Arizona after 3% of the vote. Lord Logan said, "Well done, Emerald. Great reporting. Why these people are still free to commit these crimes is beyond me." So this is the 31st one. This goes on for quite a while longer. So if you have time to just sit back and enjoy this, this is some great information coming out. And I'm going to continue to sneak some water as I read through all these. That same day, At Time magazine reported Molly Ball published a cover story touting the inside story of the conspiracy, which confirmed that 2020 election had been fortified by American elites to install Biden. She was trying to cover for the cabal, but we all took that as anons and analysts and digital soldiers. The story had the opposite effect of what the author wished. Yes, it sure did. By February of 2021, Rasmussen found 61% of GOP voters agreed Biden did not win the election fairly. Voters were already turning against GOP officials who called the election secure, like the guy with the patch on his eye. Complete rhinos. Dan Crenshaw. He's a Texas rhino. That's one of the reasons why it's so frustrating to have people like that are so evil, acting like they're conservative, acting like they are fighting for us, and they're completely sold out, and doing exactly what the cabal wants them to do, saying that that election was secure. House Republicans held their first vote to oust Liz Cheney as a leader. She was gone by May. The illegal Biden regime knew its public support was already shaky in February of 2021. So that month, again, Biden's losing support big time. So that month, the National Archives and Records Administration, NARA, contacted Trump to return some documents to them. This setup would lead to the FBI's Mar-a-Lago raid in 2022. On May 19th, the House voted to form a committee on the January 6th attack, with 35 Republicans voting for it. Pelosi later made it a select committee with only 2 GOP members, Cheney and Kinzinger. This was that's why he calls it the unselect committee. It was done against the rules completely. A former CIA Inspector General, David Buckley, served as its staff director. So there you go. You got David Buckley, a CIA Inspector General, being in that whole coup with Pelosi, Cheney, and Kinzinger. And these are the complete sellouts. These are the people that need to be held accountable, and I believe it's going to take military tribunals. By June, and I believe many of these military tribunals have already happened, especially for those that we put with deals to go infiltrate the infiltrators. And now we have it all, as Q has said many times, right? By June, the Biden regime tried the ultimate power grab by putting all state elections under the control of the federal government through the Freedom to Vote bill. See how they call these things? Freedom to Vote bill. And they're basically trying to keep us from having any fair elections. When the bill was blocked by the GOP, Dems pressured Manchin and Simonian to end the Senate's filibuster rules. In September 21, the J6 committee worked to change the 1887 Electoral Count Act. This was done to answer the Dr. Eastman memo, which laid out the legal plan for how VP Pence could have certified the 2020 election in Trump's favor. Congress passed the Reform Act of 2022. So basically, there's no question Pence had the power to at least set it back for 10 days. He even had the power to say, hey, Trump actually won this election, right? By basically saying, hey, it's too much fraud here. We're going to go back to the state legislatures. The Republicans had more state legislatures. Trump could have won. That was a very possible thing. But as you know, Pence is compromised. On November 12th, Steve Bannon was indicted on 2 counts of contempt of Congress after he refused to comply with the January 6th committee subpoenas. The January 6th committee recommended contempt charges against Mark Meadows on December 13th. So the lawfare is now going to everybody in the Trump camp, right? By December 13th, the January 6th committee had already obtained and leaked in text messages from Trump White House staff Mark Meadows, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, to left-wing media outlets. The illegally leaked texts included messages from Fox News host Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity and Brian Kilmeade. I didn't know this as well. This is just some filling in the holes of this whole thing is just fantastic. By fall 2021, the Biden regime was widely hated by the American people. The crowd of the NASCAR race chanted F Biden. Remember, F Joe Biden, F Joe Biden. On live TV in October, and that same chant spread quickly to sports events at every venue in America. The Biden regime's answer was to increase the tyranny. Lawfare through our court system was used to destroy critics. News outlets were forced into major settlements to stop coverage of election fraud. People were silenced on social media by CIA and FBI agents giving orders through proxies. And people like me, guys, they just completely destroyed financially, right? Compared to where I was 5 years ago. You can imagine they lose all your platforms, right? They took away 9 of my bank accounts. I had to change banks, right? And PayPal, I lost massive revenue on our Backstage because PayPal took out all 3 of my accounts: my business account, my personal account, as well as my ministry account. So this is what they did. They basically tried to bankrupt us all, right? Only a small group of people had paid close attention to voting machine companies Smartmatic and Dominion before the 2020 election. Only a few people knew that certain companies were actually international criminal organizations. In fact, there was a news segment by Lou Dobbs in 26 that you should watch. And again, we don't have time to watch that. It's 4 minutes long. But clearly, this reason they wanted to take him out because he was exposing election fraud. On August 8, 2024, a federal grand jury in Florida indicted top Smartmatic executives for bribery and money laundering related to the 2016 elections in the Philippines. This is interesting. Roger Pente and Jorge Baquez and Eli Morono, election officials in the Philippines, also wanted Smartmatic investigated for changing the script in the transparency server without informing the Commission on Elections. Since that charge put into question the results of their May 9th, 2016 election. Sound familiar? So again, they've stolen elections in 72 countries, guys. That's the scary part of this. That is really the scary part of this. So let's see here. Welcome you guys on both Rumble and YouTube. I should put up the chats on Facebook as well, but I can see right now. I can see chats from YouTube. So make sure you put your stuff in here. You got and Rumble as well as Backstage in the Zoom. Which bogus NGO was chosen to observe the 2016 elections? It was the Carter Center, headed by former President Jimmy Carter. It also observed the 2006 election in Venezuela. Did you hear this? This is something I hadn't put together either. So the Carter Center, the NGO, when we know what these NGOs are all about now, right? Funded by the USAID and our tax dollars being used. The 2006 election in Venezuela, they observed. So this Jimmy Carter Center is part of this whole thing. Carter himself later claimed that Venezuela had the best electoral system in the world, when it really was the cabal's plan to destroy 72 countries by putting in their people controlled by them to destroy each country. In March 2005, Smartmatic acquired Sequoia Voting Systems. This is important. This SEQOUOIA. Again, these are derivatives, which gave it significant control over the U.S. elections. Smartmatic's new machines were used in the Chicago primaries in March 2006. The vote was halted as a key race there due to problems with the new machines. And so they weren't very good at hiding it back then. They've perfected it now with fake voter roll insertions that they can actually apply when they flip votes or when they add votes. or when they subtract votes and they move them around, they have to go back to a voter roll person. That's why the voter rolls have been so corrupted since 2006, because they need a bunch of fake ones or people that don't vote that they can assign votes on people that didn't even vote. After the issue in Chicago, an investigation of Smartmatic began in October 2006 by the Committee of Foreign Investment in the U.S., CIFAS, and Republican Carolyn Maloney, a Democrat from New York, asked Bush administration to review the Sequoia deal. Why? Smartmatic's ownership was hidden in foreign trusts. We literally have Venezuelan software running our elections to this day. Smartmatic did not divulge its owners to Congress. Instead, it sold Sequoia to a small company in Canada called Dominion in December 2006. Isn't that interesting? Right? So in order to get away from it, they sold it to Dominion. That ended the probe by SFIUS. But Dominion and Smartmatic were always linked. So you basically sold it to a company that you were working with. This is the cabals using NGOs, using different companies to basically get away from any investigations and bring in their foreign software in to destroy our country. All the way back in 2006. In 2008, both companies worked together to automate the Philippine election systems. In fact, Smartmatic once sued Dominion in Delaware for breaching a licensing agreement between them. So they were in bed together from the very beginning. Just look at Smartmatic's Venezuelan senior developer, David Moreno. Remember that name, David Moreno. Smartmatic's Venezuelan senior developer, who moved over to work at Sequoia in 2006 and then became the director of election production and testing at Dominion. So this same guy, David Moreno, worked for Smartmatic, Sequoia, and Dominion. Okay? So all the software works together regardless. So again, what we know now is that the chip that's used that can fire up a virtual machine in any of our election machines is built in China. And it's assembled in Taiwan. And every machine, whether it has ESNS or Dominion or Smartmatic, all these different derivatives, have the same chip that can create the virtual machine to change votes. Just look at, that's how Smartmatic, Sequoia, Dominion got into our elections in 307 counties in 16 states. Now, this is all the way back in 26. They're everywhere now. In fact, Lindsay Salser, an ex-ops and security for communist dictator Hugo Chavez, has already provided an affidavit with the details of the Smartmatic Dominion connection in November 2020. So this is the whole thing that talks about how all these companies work together. For years after Salazar's affidavit, a highly decorated CIA agent provided similar testimony about the election fraud scheme just before the 2024 election. Again, another detail talking about this. This is a must-watch before 2024 presidential election. My friend Gary is a whistleblower with deep connection to DOJ, FBI, DEA, and Homeland Security, and he exposed shocking details about the foreign involvement in U.S. elections. It's a whole nother thread there about this CIA agent whistleblower basically showing how all this is happening. This is 16 minutes, unfortunately.
Central Intelligence Agency. For over 3 decades, I served in the U.S. National Security Apparatus.
So there's a whistleblower telling us that they've taken over our elections. So a narco-terrorist state was actually in charge of our elections since 2006. The goal? To place communists into power and destroy America from within. But there was a small group of people who stopped this nightmare. Probably less than 30. They saved the world. Okay, this is a big part of why we got Trump elected in 2024. And this goes on for quite some time, guys. So we're only about halfway through, but I think you'll enjoy hearing the rest of the story. That's why we're going to continue to go along here. The first big mistake for Smartmatic, Juan Andres Bautista got a divorce. He was the chief of elections in the Philippines, Comelec. In 2017, his wife disclosed docs which showed he was worth $1 billion. See, they pay off all these people to use their selection machines. The DOJ launched an investigation. But Batista, let's see, it's Batista, was impeached. He fled to the USA. He refused to return to the Philippines amid a Senate probe. His wife entered the DOJ's witness protection program. Money laundering and conspiracy charges against Batista were filed on September 9th, 2023. So you can see that we just found out a lot about this very recently. Batista allegedly received bribe money from top executives at Smartmatic for assistance in their bid to secure the multi-million-dollar election contracts. But Smartmatic was not named in U.S. court records in 2023. Philippine officials wanted to know who helped Batista. In 2024, U.S. authorities dismissed reports that Batista had been arrested after money laundering and conspiracy charges were filed in August. Batista is not in U.S. custody, and we decline to comment further, said Nicole Novice Oxman at the Biden's DOJ. So the Biden's DOJ let this guy go. What was going on? According to my sources, Batista disappeared because the CIA is hiding him. Gosh, this is new stuff, guys, that I wasn't really aware of. Beautiful thread here. Why? Because USAID gave money to Comelec to hire Smartmatic for the 2016 election in Philippines. And this is what I was telling you. Our own money of USAID was being used to get all these election machines in 72 countries. And here we're talking about just one of them, Philippines. Not to mention them getting in all our counties, nearly every one of them. Batista can't testify in U.S. court that the U.S. government provided the money. After all, the CIA doesn't want the American people to know that USAID is actually funding Smartmatic. Can you believe that? $1 billion to this guy that ended up getting a divorce in the Philippines. That's not Smartmatic's profits. That's this globalist cabal taking over elections in all 72 countries. After all, the CIA doesn't want the American people to know that USAID is actually funding Smartmatic. That would be crazy, right? And this is, she puts this, USAID is pushing Smartmatic into Bosnia right now. And this is what she shows. U.S. government invested $500,000 USD to pilot new voting technologies in the 2024 Bosnia and Herzegovina municipal elections. So here we are. This is why Trump had to go dismantle USAID and he brought in Elon to help do that. You can see right here she highlights the pilot will test the use of optical scanners that directly transmit results to 145 polling stations in the BIH municipalities. And it says these locations were selected by USAID and CEC to provide a statistical relevant sample of municipalities and polling stations that are demographically and politically representative of BIH. The scanners will provide by election technology company Smartmatic. Globalists being put in all 72 countries. Globalists running these governments. Running on selections all over the world. The CIA wouldn't still use USAID to fund Smartmatic, even after the DOJ itself had charged 15 of Venezuela's top communist officials with running a narco-terrorism conspiracy in 2020. A whole release about that. And so, again, after this, they're still doing it. And this is a whole press release on justice.gov on that. I miss Lou Dobbs, somebody says here. So let's get back. This is 61, so we're going to find 62 here. There it is. Juan Andres Batista's divorce was not only a problem for Smartmatic. A group of former IC analysts had produced a document in 2020 election fraud that provided sufficient legal predicate to use NSA unprocessed raw signal data to prove the fraud by December of 2020. In December of 2020, the NSC's Director for Strategic Planning, Rich Higgins, gave a briefing on the document and the complete data set to both the White House and to President Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani. That's in December 2020, after the stolen election. On January 4th, 2021, U.S. senators and staffers were also briefed on the document. Among the U.S. senators who were briefed were Senator Kevin Cramer and Ron Johnson. Several NSC officials also got the documents. Neither Cramer nor Johnson nor Trump's NSC officials tried to authorize the investigation outlined in the doc. So they knew the election was stolen, but they also knew that the country was massively divided, and still the black hats controlled the media, controlled the minds of a huge percentage of the population. And many of them convinced that Trump was a criminal and that Trump was a problem. Therefore, if he'd taken the action that Sidney Powell and Flynn and Patrick Byrne had talked about, they likely would have ended up in jail and would have a civil war back in 2021. Had anyone called the phone number in the memo, they would have reached the senior legal counsel in the heart of the Pentagon. That one phone call would have launched an investigation using the unlimited resources of the U.S. government. We're talking about the NSA's raw signal data, which captures every kind of electronic comms on Earth. What people spent the last 4 years uncovering would have been uncovered in a few hours and then sent to Trump. But the call never came. The evidence of the 2020 election fraud is literally sitting on a DOD skiff right now. And the same DOD legal counsel that was waiting for a signal phone call from the Trump to start an investigation in 2020 is still waiting for that phone call in 2025 right now, today. And she's writing this in February 10th of this year. We know now, because of Patrick Byrne stuff, we had a whole nother avenue going on. All right, she's going to write about that too. Let's assess the situation as it stood in 2022. Sidney Powell was being sued and silenced. Rudy Giuliani was being sued and silenced. Mike Lindell was being sued and silenced. Patrick Byrne was being sued and silenced. Fox, Newsmax, OAN were being sued and silenced. That's when more Patriot showed up to fight. In April 2021, the county clerk of Mesa County, Colorado, was told to install a software update that would overwrite the rigged 2020 election records, which is a violation of federal law. Her name, Tina Peters. So Tina Peters arranged a consultant to make forensic images of the server before and after the software update. By August 2021, the passwords and data associated with Mesa County's 2020 election were leaked to the public. Colorado uses Dominion voting machines. Experts who reviewed the forensic images found that Mesa County's system did not meet Colorado's certification requirements. Why? The system failed to generate and preserve audit trail files. In fact, its audit feature was disabled. Mesa County also had uncertified software installed, which is illegal. It also allows an automatic destruction of election records. It allowed unauthorized changes to vote totals, since it contains 36 wireless networking devices built into voting machines by the vendor. When they tell us they're not connected to the internet, complete lies. Two experts also found that the new and unauthorized shadow databases were secretly created on the machine after vote counting began. Those thousands of ballots that had already been counted were then secretly reprocessed inside the voting machine, undetected by election officials. The system was also preset to erase critical records within a few days, including activity logs and user logins, which covered the tracks of anyone committing unauthorized access, software installation, or manipulation. This report was made public in September of 2021. Dominion and Colorado's Secretary of State destroyed all data on the hard drive of Mesa County's machines 1 month after the April 2021 elections, even though federal and state laws require election records to be preserved for at least 22 months. Nobody went to jail except Tina Peters. In August, this is how much black hat control still we have to fight and pray through and use our authority in Christ. In August 2024, she was convicted on 7 of 10 charges of engaging in a security breach to advance a false conspiracy theory of election fraud. She was sentenced to 9 years in prison, but she had merely preserved election records, which it was her sworn duty to do. This is one of the biggest injustices that we've ever seen. And Tina Peters still in jail today. And we have some rhinos still in the Trump administration now, not allowing that to happen. One of them working for our current DOJ. There was another group which investigated the stolen 2020 election from the very beginning. These men were intel professionals. One member was even inside Trump's NSC. This group was known as Foot Patrol. Now, Foot Patrol is very interesting. So listen to this part, because this is more detailed than what I'd ever discovered. I'm going to back up a little bit. There was another group which investigated the stolen 2020 election from the very beginning. These men were intel professionals. One member was even inside Trump's NSC. And this group was known as the Foot Patrol. Within a few days of the 2020 election, the Foot Patrol was providing accurate information about the voting machines to various public figures. That's because they recruited former engineers from Smartmatic to map the entire system. The Foot Patrol put together a technical presentation, the briefing, to explain how the 2020 election was stolen in great detail. They provided the briefing to important public figures in 2020, 2021. They explained the 14 different ways to steal an election with machines. The Foot Patrol gave the briefing to senators, including Senator Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley. They did nothing. Now, we talk about Senator Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley being our good guys. Are they? Who knows? They briefed the House Freedom Caucus. They did nothing. So part of this is because of this potential blackmail that people that this black hats have on this Congress. This is why we need a whole new Congress, new election machines, new primaries to get rid of the establishment Republicans and replace the Ron Johnsons and the Chuck Grassleys of the world. According to my sources, the staff of the House Freedom Caucus were good, but the members were too scared to do anything. See, I think they may have even been threatened or family threatened. The chief of staff or one member told them, "We don't want to touch this." In fact, only one senator stood up for truth, but that comes later. The Foot Patrol gave the briefing to one FBI agent in Washington, D.C. When it was over, the FBI agent told them to flee the city as soon as possible. Why? Because they would be killed by the FBI if anyone found out what they were doing. You hear that? This is the Biden FBI. Would literally kill them if they found out they were investigating 2020 election fraud. The Foot Patrol gave the briefing to lawyers working for Trump's son-in-law a few days after the election in a building in Arlington, Virginia. The Foot Patrol was basically attacked with unfriendly questions after being the briefing. They did nothing too. So again, Trump's was betrayed all over the place. DEA officials tried to stop the Foot Patrol from giving the briefing because the DEA considered some of the info belonged to them. Trump's own DEA officials didn't understand that the drug dealers they were watching were also in control of America's voting machines. The Foot Patrol also collected all the internet website information related to Smartmatic and Dominion in a database to preserve records before it was all wiped by the bad guys. That's when they found the ultimate source, the anonymous Japanese guy. Another turn. It turns out one guy tracked all internet traffic flowing between Dominion, Serbia, and Hong Kong on Election Day 2020. This is key. We're talking about Serbia now. They're the ones that were using and activating the virtual machines that could change votes, okay, in 2020. And so we've seen the graphs, right? Whoop, whoop, right? But they had to get fake ballots in there, but they had to actually get the votes created by the selection machines to go to those ballots. It turns out one guy tracked all internet traffic, again, and that one Japanese guy posted that info on his little anonymous account. The Foot Patrol contacted him to get all the IP addresses that Dominion used. What did the anonymous Japanese guy want for a full file of all the IP addresses that Dominion used inside the USA on Election Day 2020? He wanted a donation of $20. To this day, nobody knows his name. Now, here's the most important part. The IPs obtained from the anonymous Japanese guy on Twitter X were crucial in stopping the steal of the 2024 election. Literally could not be done without that information. So the guy helped save America. He might not even know it too. This is critical, guys, because if you put the everything we've studied together with Patrick Byrne, him talking about how a group of patriots 2 days before the election they stopped Serbia from being able to change the votes. They probably attacked these IP addresses and broke connections and did some DDoS attacks or something on those Serbian machines, so where Kamala was completely convinced she was going to win. And they were going to do the same thing that they did in 2020 and 2024 to have Kamala beat Trump with the 3 o'clock stuff, right? But when Serbia couldn't get in, they had to change their plans and let Trump win. Now they're going to try to do what they did in 2016 to 2020. They're going to try to keep him from being able to do everything. But wow, Trump came out firing with all his EOs. This is a spiritual battle, guys. Let's be praying. Here's this IP info led to an astonishing discovery that the traders at CISA.gov deny to this day. The primary data center for the 2020 election was hosted in a foreign country on Huawei servers. This Huawei, Huawei, is the Japanese telecom company. It's like the AT&T of China. That's right. American election system is in the hands of its enemies. CISA is supposed to be the place inside the DHS government, our Department of Homeland Security, that protects America's vital infrastructure. But CISA is actually the nerve center where America's elections are stolen. In fact, CISA actually partners with Smartmatic to practice beforehand. So you can see this article here. See if it's still, it looks like it might be broken. Smartmatic, CISA, and the partner hold annual election security exercise. So I haven't had time to go dig into that. But, well, it's a pretty small article. Let's see. Microsoft honored 12 election providers to have partnered with cybersecurity and infrastructure security. There it is, CISA. CISA partnering with Smartmatic. Wow. Pretty crazy when you look at that. Here we are. The Foot Patrol was in negotiations with Fox News to provide them with evidence and witnesses to fight the Dominion lawsuit. A meeting was called in April of 2023. A former Trump cabinet security was advising the Murdochs. That official told Fox News to settle the case. So this is interesting. So Foot Patrol, I think this may have been this group of brilliant people that was working with Patrick Byrne. And so a lot of people are in danger fighting, getting this information out to us. If you've watched my programs where we've interviewed Patrick Byrne and then read his book and then also played his interview on Roseanne Barr, and there was an updated one that I did with Larry Ballard on the exclusive on Faith and Freedom TV. By the way, download that Faith and Freedom TV on your TV apps. Faith and with the N, Freedom TV, and on your mobile phone. You guys will really enjoy that exclusive content. A lot of that coming from Larry Ballard. This group of what she's calling Foot Patrol, I think are the ones that saved the 2024 election by stopping those Serbia IP addresses of Dominion from being able to change the votes in the Kamala rigged win that was supposed to happen. The Foot Patrol was in negotiations with Fox News to provide them with evidence and witnesses to fight the Dominion lawsuit. A meeting was called in April 2023, and a former Trump cabinet security was advising the Murdochs. That official, so this former Trump cabinet secretary, we're not sure exactly who that is, basically told them to settle the case. So probably, again, a cabal member telling Fox News to send massive money to another cabal company, Smartmatic. Great job on this Emerald. Okay, so that's 91. Let's keep going and find 92. Fox News immediately flipped its legal strategy. It settled with Dominion for $787 million. Can you believe that? We know this was election fraud, and that we know that if they did true investigations, that massive fraud would have been found. But they didn't. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do discovery. That's just like Fox News called the election for Biden with 3% of the vote in Arizona, right? They participated in the coup, the stolen election. Then they give, of all these conservatives spending money on Fox News, right, by watching, all moves over to the cabal, $787 million. Then it fired top host Tucker Carlson 1 week later. Tucker was doing a great job on this stuff. Unfortunately, he's gone off the deep end on Israel. Dominion's annual revenues were about $40 million, so the award was an absurd shakedown, not supported by case law. This is insane that Fox News did this. This is Fox News selling out the country. Here's the interesting part. The parent company of Fox News had apparently obtained a $1.25 billion loan package 1 year earlier for no particular reason. So this probably was planned to have Fox News, and then they had to lie to everybody to say there's no election fraud. So Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham caved on us too back then. Now, I think they're good people probably, but the White Hats had to change their path. How did Fox executives know they would need so much spare cash ahead of time? That's a really good question. Who was the former Trump official who told Fox News to settle with Dominion? According to my sources, it was the same person who Tucker Carlson stopped from getting a position in the second Trump administration. Isn't that interesting? So it's Mike Pompeo. So how Tucker Carlson killed Mike Pompeo's hopes of joining the Trump administration. So that's another article that's very interesting that we don't have time to get into. But so that's interesting. So Mike Pompeo is basically telling Fox News to settle the case. And it sounds like it was highly orchestrated from the beginning with that big loan. All this money going from Fox News directly into these foreign nationals that are controlling our elections. Incredibly, Team Trump continued to invite this former Trump cabinet official to speak at public rallies as late as November 4th, 2024. President Trump finally revoked security protections for this individual on January 23rd, 2025. So finally, right after Trump got into office, 3 days after taking office, Trump finally realized that he had an enemy in the camp with Mike Pompeo. Why did it take so long for President Trump to understand the danger of the voting machines? Because there are influential figures in GOP circles who wanted Trump to misunderstand the danger. GOP donors, GOP lawyers, GOP politicians. Some people are just finding out that President Trump now gets it. America's voting machines are controlled by narco-terrorists who rule Venezuela. Why do you think we have all those boats down there, those military personnel and B-2s flying over Venezuela? It's not just because of the drugs. It's because they control our selection machines. There's Trump orders GOP donor oil company to leave Venezuela. That's a whole nother article there. Per Wall Street Journal, oil magnate Harry Sargent III is a GOP donor well known for his back-channel efforts to temper hostilities between the USA and Venezuela. On Friday, this is back in March of this year. On Friday, the Trump administration ordered his oil trading company to leave the Southern America country. Trump just revoked his permit to do business there at all. 2 weeks ago, before this, President Trump designated Tren de Agua, Aragua, as a foreign terrorist org. Why? Because the group is conducting irregular warfare against the USA. There's a whole thing here on the White House, invocation of the Alien Enemies Act regarding the invasion of the United States. So this is number 100 posts. We've been through 100 posts, guys, and this goes to 120. So we're nearing the end here. Hope you're enjoying this. Let me know if you guys think this is worth the time to dig into some of these type of things. Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act in this order. Why? because we are at war with Venezuela, and Tren de Agua is the army of the cartel that rules there. Maduro leads the regime-sponsored enterprise Cartel de los Solos. The cartel and the government are the same people. The EO says Venezuela is a hybrid criminal state that is perpetuating an invasion of a predatory incursion into the U.S. Per my sources, the Venezuelan cartel is the largest in the world with oil reserves and drugs. The smaller Mexican drug cartels take orders from it. So again, one of her sources is likely Patrick Byrne and his team, the foot soldiers, I think. And this is exactly what Patrick Byrne has taught to us, and I reported on months ago, is that the Mexican cartels are basically controlled by Venezuela's cartel. Remember that Foot Patrol flew around the USA for 4 years to warn GOP officials and donors about rigged elections. They gave their briefing 3 times to RNC lawyer Harmeet Dillon, but she did nothing. So this Harmeet Dillon is an RNC lawyer, obviously not real interested in fighting this battle. Now, could that be, is she a sellout? Is she controlled by the cabal? Or has she been threatened? But boy, this is a spiritual battle. We need more whistleblowers, we need military tribunals is where I believe it's going. They briefed David Warrington, now the White House counsel, but he didn't believe them. So hopefully David Warrington has come along now. According to 2 sources of Foot Patrol, they tried to brief Charlie Kirk, but he refused, which is really interesting because Charlie Kirk didn't like talking about election fraud because he wanted to rally people to the polls, right? So I don't think Charlie was compromised here at all. He just knew his role that God had him in was to change the mindset and thinking from progressiveness of the younger population to conservatives, and to get pastors involved in fighting the battle politically, right? That's why they have the Turning Point USA and the Turning Point, I can't remember what it's called, but it's all the churches. They briefed Trump advisor Krista La Civetta, but he did not believe that voting machines were conducted to the internet, per 2 sources. And Richard Grinnell refused the briefing. So this is really interesting. These are people, I mean, obviously this was written on April 2nd, before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. But what you have here is what many people call Con Incorporated. A lot of the Anons really thought, even though Charlie had a heart for conservative values, he was not fighting election fraud, right? Or some of the most important things that we had. And so this is what they call con, like you're a con artist, right? All these people that say that are big parts of this, not fighting the biggest problem we have by far. And Rick Grinnell not doing this is just, and Trump advisors, many people around Trump not fighting this battle with us. But God's in control. So we need to continue to, again, use our authority in Christ. Who in Trump's inner circle of advisors tried to stop Foot Patrol from the very beginning? The name most often mentioned is Boris Epstein. One source told me Boris was sabotaging things from the start. So this name is weird. It's not like the famous Epstein. This is Epshteyn, but I think it's pronounced Epstein. So Boris Epstein with a weird spelling. And then it says, spoiler alert, this is on April 10th of this year. The good news in 2025 is that Foot Patrol is now briefing the right people. Woo! That is the good news, right? And here's Tulsi Gabbard talking about election fraud from back in April 10th. "106. If you've been following my spider thread on stolen elections and Venezuela, then you know why this just happened." So this is an article that came out. It says 27 members of the Association of Tren de Agua charged with racketeering, narcotics, sex trafficking, robbery, and firearms offenses. First RICO charge against TDA members and associates. So now that Trump knows what he's fighting, and this is why we have military in the Caribbean. This is why we're filing RICO charges against Trinidad and Tobago, and realizing that these guys are way more than just a gang. Here's the briefing that the Trump administration national security officials are getting right now to understand the links between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela's narco-terrorist cartel. And she says, in a Real Lendell TV exclusive, I obtained the briefing that's been provided to Trump national security officials regarding Trinidad and Tobago, FTO, and the Venezuelan government. And this is one of the documents of the key players. And this shows all the way up to Maduro, and then this Iris Varela, who's the Minister of the People's Power for the Penitentiary Service. And then that goes into, and she's linked into Trinidad and Tobago, which is the Revolutionary Armed Forces is also there. Hector Guerrero, the NRO guerrilla. And so you can see that all these different people, where Trinidad and Tobago is linked right into Venezuelan government. And this is why Trump is coming down so hard on the very people who control our elections and the Mexican cartels that are fighting us. All right, a couple more things. That was 107. Spoiler alert, on October 17, 2022, Elon Musk got on stage at a Trump rally in Folsom, Pennsylvania, and told everybody to scrutinize Dominion voting machines. Musk said, the last things I would do is trust a computer program. You probably remember that when he was talking about that. Traitors inside America's intel agency have been busy trying to stop foot patrol. First, they leaked to New York Times on March 20th that the shared judgment of the nation's spy agencies was Trinidad and Tobago was not controlled by the Venezuelan government. So what's new? New York Times lying, right? To try to set a narrative to get people to not understand the real battle that we're in. In response, DNI Tulsi Gabbard called for the DOJ to investigate 3 intelligence community leaks for criminal referral. She wrote, these deep state criminals leaked classified information for partisan politic purposes to undermine POTUS' agenda. So she's all over this, as you know. President Trump's pressure on the Maduro regime in Venezuela was forced Chevron and its CEO, Mike Rith, to break cover on Fox News this last weekend. Why would Chevron claim that the narco-terrorists who run the Maduro regime should be kept in power? Is it possible that Chevron is waging a PR campaign right now to stop President Trump from imposing sanctions on a narco-terrorist state? Is Chevron propping up the Maduro regime and its paramilitary group, Trinidad and Tobago, which invaded the USA? She has a whole Venezuelan thread from May 1st. There's a coordinated public relations campaign to launder the Maduro regime's image in America and lobbying President Trump to lift his rightful sanctions against the socialist Venezuelan regime. There's also a bunch of anons basically saying that, thinking Maduro's good because he's fighting the Rothschild banking system. It's like, give me a break, guys. Does Maria Bartiromo and Sunday Futures grasp that she just ran a segment in favor of keeping the narco-terrorists in power in Venezuela? Remember, Maria Bartiromo, most of her stuff's really good and seems to be being used by the White Hats. But she's part of the CFR. She's part of the Council of Foreign Relations. So I don't trust her. I don't trust anybody that's part of the Council of Foreign Relations, which is basically the deep state control of the media. One of the 3 organizations that does that. Bilderberg Group does it as well. The Trilateral Commissions, those 3 in CFR completely control our media, give the 4am talking points, etc. The same criminals who America's rigged voting machines. Does she know that Fox News settled a lawsuit with its front company? Chevron is not only the party interested in keeping the Maduro regime in power, there's also global oil terminals and its own Harry Sargent. According to sources, Sargent has also hired people close to Trump admin to lobby the White House to leave Maduro alone. You can see what Trump is against. He's got people. This is a swampy swamp, isn't it? Why did the GOP strategist Sotheby's, see who that is, Andrew Sotheby's, Republican strategist. Let's get this back. Why did GOP strategist Sotheby's publish a pro-Maduro article in the Daily Caller on April 29th? So here's the supposed Republicans fighting against Trump on this. Why did Carrie Lake's former campaign advisor, Caroline Wren, visit Caracas recently? I believe the capital of Venezuela. How many people in Trump world have registered as FAR agents for Venezuela lately? So X is now limiting traffic on this thread, which is odd since the platform is supposedly owned by Elon Musk and he is a vocal supporter of President Trump, who has publicly called for more attention to be paid to the corrupt voting machines. So I don't know about you guys, but this is the first time I found the thread was last night. So this is the 8th time I've liked this post. The first 7 times something on X unliked the post after I liked it. So it's time to explain exactly what happened on Election Day 2024. So this is number 117, and there's a couple more that I believe she did. Here's 118. Update. For May 6, 2025, it looks like the U.S. military just rescued some of Venezuelan political leaders who opposed the Maduro regime from an embassy in Caracas last Saturday. So this is big. This is big right here. Things are starting to get hot down there. So you can see Marco Rubio. The U.S. welcomes the successful rescue of all hostages held by the Maduro regime in the Argentinian embassy in Caracas. Following the precise operation, all hostages are now safely on U.S. soil, where Maduro's illegitimate regime has undermined Venezuela's institutions, violated human rights, and endangered our regional security. We extend our gratitude to all personnel involved in this operation and to our partners who assisted in securing the safe liberation of these Venezuelan heroes. Is that just not really interesting, guys? Oh my goodness. Hopefully I didn't lose this site, this part we're on. Darn it. So this is her here, and she's got this pinned, but now I have to go all the way down to 120, which is going to take a while. We'll see if because this builds up and loses its thread every 30 or so. But we're by the last 2, and I clicked on that article and it came down. Here's 57. We'll get to 120 here real quickly to finish this up. But wow, powerful stuff. And now she's basically going to go into the details here shortly about how the Foot Patrol literally saved us in the 2024 election. And that's the exciting part that I think I kind of could guess what that is. And I've already alluded it to that, and that is, hey, we are going to. They found the IP machines, right? She said that Japanese guy that tracked all the traffic and all the IP. It's like it's like the phone number for the computer, right? So they know exactly which machines were doing the dirty work in 2020, and with that information, they were able to stop them from doing the dirty work in 2024. Okay, so there's 114. I think we're here again. They're talking about limiting the traffic to this. And this is why the U.S. military rescued all those people. That's 118. 119 said, why did former Trump NSA Robert Cobrian publish a Fox News op-ed in April 24th, hoping President Trump's strategy against the Maduro regime would focus on allowing U.S. companies to continue to operate in Venezuela? Notice the pro-Chevron stuff runs through Fox News. So Fox News, again, is our enemy, guys. You got to remember that. They're the rhinos of mainstream media. There's good people there. Yes, obviously there's some good people there that are trapped in this white hat, black hat deal. But the leaders of Fox News are full cabal, right? And again, remember this whole Chevron is part of this as well. So that's 119. I thought there was 120. See if I can find the last one. There it is. Here's the last one. And this is posted on May 13th. But it says, update for April 23rd, 2025. Oil tycoon James Jennison and his wife and sons were arrested by U.S. Marshals in Utah. Why? They were allegedly laundering money from illegally importing crude oil for the drug cartels. The Jensens owned Arroyo Terminals. So that was just a potential link in all this. But what she's telling us is that she is going to Emerald Robinson. This is Emerald Robinson again. It says the Savage Queen of Twitter, host of these two programs, X Newsmax, X on, and she also has Emerald.tv is where you can find her. But doing some awesome reporting, giving a lot more details to this whole story that we've been following the last 6 years or 7 years, right? This is from the stolen election, or at least the 5 years from 2020 on, the last 5 years at a minimum. And I'm looking so forward to the details of how we stopped those Serbian machines from making Kamala Harris your president with Tim Walz. Can you imagine that being our vice president? Wow. God is good that we are in a better place now than we have. So, hey, we've almost been going two hours, so I'm going to end it there. I did want to talk about Rumble Premium, though, real quick, guys. I think this is important. This is something that I love doing is supporting companies that are in the fight with us, right? And so we're going to talk about Rumble Premium right now. And this allows me to let you guys know exactly what's happening. You've probably noticed Rumble is growing fast. Let me go to, I got to go to, before I show you this, it'll show a QR code. That's why I love going to this part. So let me get to that. It went way all the way over here. You probably so let me make sure this is started now. So let me see if you guys can see. Yeah, you can see it. Yeah. Now I understand what's going on with that. All right. You've probably noticed Rumble is growing fast, and it's not showing, and it's not slowing down. They're building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now there's Rumble Premium, an easy way to upgrade your experience. With Premium, you get ad-free viewing across platforms, no pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content you came for. Plus, Premium members unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scenes drops, and more from your favorite creators. Right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. Just go to rumble.com/premium and use the promo code STUDIO at checkout. That's rumble.com/premium and the promo code STUDIO to get your $10 off. No ads, more freedom and content you actually care about. That's the deal. All right. You guys are awesome. Appreciate you hanging in there with me as we went through that 120 post thread. That is pretty awesome. I'm just going to end in a quick prayer, okay? So we have praise and prayer Mondays and Thursdays, and word and worship Wednesdays and Sundays, where we have beautiful music. Now we've had to move that to a whole new channel. It's only on Rumble and Faith and Freedom TV. It's in the word and worship channels on those two platforms. So again, the two platforms where you can worship with us, because of music licensing, we have to be very careful. We had to create a new channels on Faith and Freedom TV and on Rumble. And you look for the word and worship, word with the N, worship. You can tell I use the letter N versus A-N-D in a lot of, to get URLs that work. So you'll find Faith and Freedom TV, faithandfreedom.tv, right, is the app you want to go to. It's faithandfreedom.tv is where you'll find exclusive content with me and Larry Ballard talking about all this stuff, and what Trump's doing. We had a great interview with him today. That'll be up tomorrow on the Faith and Freedom TV. That's exclusive. You can't find that on any other platform. We're starting to do multiple providers doing exclusive content you'll only find on Faith and Freedom TV. And there's 3 ways you can watch Faith and Freedom TV, guys. Just remember that. Number 1 is the web app. Just type in Faith with the N, Freedom FaithNFreedomTV. Faith and Freedom TV. FaithNFreedom.tv. That's the web app. And then you can download it on your TV and download it on your mobile phone in the App Store. You just have to search Faith with the N, Freedom, .tv or TV, right? I hope that helps you guys find the exclusive content with me and Larry Ballard and a ton of other stuff. Live events coming too. We have live events coming of Mary Crowley's event, Open the Heavens. That whole day event is going to be live on our platform. So at the same time, you can be watching all these videos, plus you have two 24/7 channels, and there's 2 more coming, and a bunch of live events simultaneously. It's pretty awesome. And then we have an event on the 8th that's more of a chlorine dioxide health truth event coming up on the 8th, and a bunch of others we're coordinating. So you can watch live events, and you can watch, besides live events, you can watch the 24/7 channels and a bunch of VOD awesome content. So we have Amanda Grace coming on, Donna Clement's already on, the B-17 bomber John Richardson, who talks about B-17, how important that is for different ailments, as you know, the big C word. And you've got Dr. Artis coming on, Dr. Cone coming on. It's going to be phenomenal. Our whole Biohackingville TV channel, as well as Sherry Tenpenny's on. You've got the Resistance Chick. So much programming. All of them coming on this Faith and Freedom TV, where it's going to be one-stop shopping for all Red Pill / Freedom Faith content. We're putting a lot of money and energy into this, so make sure you download those 3 ways to watch it. Your TV, your mobile phone, as well as a web app by just bookmark it that on your URL, FaithNFreedom.tv. God bless you all. With that, we will talk to you tomorrow night, and tomorrow again is Wednesday, so we'll have Word and Worship on those other channels later. You guys take care. Bye-bye.
Elitist media deceives, but Faith and Freedom TV amplifies truth. Our world-leading platform delivers news, teachings, worship, movies, and music rooted in biblical values and constitutional patriotism, inspiring faith and liberty. We inspire, equip, and amplify Christian patriots to share powerful stories of faith, family, and freedom. With live events, thousands of on-demand videos, and access on Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV, Android, and iOS, we're transforming culture globally for God and country. New content is coming to ignite faith. Join our mission to counter deception. Visit faithandfreedom.tv and download the Faith and Freedom TV app today.